Welcome to another Creative Spin podcast. And on this episode, we went there. We went on to Star Wars. I just had to do that. So, I've always been a fan of Star Wars since I was a little kid. But my memory isn't the best. I'm getting older. I can't remember stuff. So I decided, let me bring into my friends, Mark and Adrial. I am not going to attempt to say their last names because, I'm a mess when it comes to names. So this is just how I'm going to roll on this one. And so I sat down with them. We had pizza. We had some craft beer. We had some fun. And we just started talking Star Wars. Initially, I thought it was going to be an episode that we were just going to touch on the last movies and The Mandalorian and, of course, Baby Yoda. But, like anything Star Wars, you always have to go back. You always kind of have to go back. Everybody knows about it, but everybody has their own opinion. And that's what I tried to get from these two guys because they are the quote-unquote experts on Star Wars. So the conversation was good. I hope you guys enjoy it, and let's hit that intro. Today's podcast is brought to you by Workplace One, a company offering boutique private offices, co-working spaces, and virtual office solutions, as well as meeting rooms in the best neighborhoods of Toronto and Kitchener-Waterloo. Ideal for entrepreneurs, companies, and passionate business people. Workplace One is where you want to be with your business. For more information, go over to workplaceone.com. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the podcast. I mean, we've been eating our pizzas and drinking our drinks, non-alcoholic, obviously.
Sure.
And now we are going to talk about Star Wars. I think it's fitting. We were just talking about teaching, and I think Star Wars fits perfectly now with the grand scheme of things.
On some level,
If you do some comparisons.
To the teaching profession and to the Star Wars franchise?
Yes, absolutely. No?
There's some tie-ins.
Okay, there is. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Adrial, welcome. Are you ready to talk about Star Wars?
Yeah, I think I'm ready.
And I think we're going to be talking a little bit more about the latest stuff. I think the earlier movies, most people know about them or should know about them or should not know about them in some cases.
Right, yeah. If you know it or you don't know it at this point, that's on you to not know it, or it's good for you if you do, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a few months. How long has it been since the last one came out? The
2 months and a bit?
The Rise of Skywalker was 2 months?
Yeah, it was like early December, mid-December.
All right. Let me ask the question. How long have you guys been fans of Star Wars? Mark.
I remember seeing it in the summer of 1977 at the Midland Drive-In when I was 6 years old.
Are you guys doing your math at home? Are you guys doing your math? He's 33 years old.
Hey,
yes.
That's how numbers work, yeah.
That's how it worked. And how was that experience? I mean, for a young boy back then in the 70s, I mean, that was like huge.
Oh, yeah. It was amazing. I remember that night. Actually, I was at the Midland Drive-In with my parents. And as soon as the two droids, C-3PO and R2-D2, appeared at the beginning of the movie, my mother says, "I'm getting in the back seat. Mark, you're sitting in the front seat with your father," and then she fell asleep.
That was it, eh?
Yeah.
That was it for her.
And me, it was popcorn all night long watching that movie in the front seat. Yeah.
Adrial, you.
I'm going to say, sometime vaguely 84, 85, because
Okay.
I showed up in 80, which was the year of Empire, but only sort of became vaguely aware of it a couple years later.
So you're like 19 right now. Right?
Yeah, that's more, again, with the numbers, that's how they work. Yeah. Sometime in the early 80s, like a year or two after Jedi was out, I started to see it on VHS and TV and whatever and just absorb it as anybody else would.
VHS, for all the kids out there, those were those rectangular things that you used
little
to
plastic
put
boxes
inside
that somehow...
these holes that were under your TV.
Yeah,
and once you pressed the button, images would appear in these boxes that were called TVs.
It was magical.
It was, pure magic.
Pure magic.
So, I mean, how long did we have to wait until the... okay. Does any one of you guys, I have to ask this because I've never understood this question. Why episode 4, 5, and 6? Why did that ever happen?
1, 2, 3? Because 4, 5, 6 are the originals.
No. Why did they start 4, 5, 6?
Oh, why'd they start there?
I think this is the big question for everybody.
Why not start with episode 1?
Yeah, why not?
All right.
Why did Mr. George Lucas decide to do that?
You want to take this?
I think...
Get a little bit closer to the mic. Don't be afraid. The mic is not a droid. It's okay.
Even if it is a droid, I mean, it might be the right kind of droid. I don't know.
The idea behind, and I only heard stories about the first times they were shown in LA.
Okay.
That nobody had an idea what the story was about. I think he had the characters and the costumes nailed down so much. Like, people were applauding when they first meet these characters they know nothing about. Mm-hmm. And when Darth Vader appeared on that ship, Princess Leia ship right at the beginning, people just started booing.
Really?
It's like, I heard stories about how...
Who are these people?
Jumped in to these characters and loving and hating them as soon as they saw them on screen.
Oh, they booed him because they knew he was the villain, and that was what they were supposed to do?
Yeah.
Okay, but why 4? Why episode 4? What was the grand plan? Like, was he expecting to do then episode 1, 2, and 3 right after?
The story I heard is that essentially...
Because I've heard that.
Yeah. He was envisioning such a grand, storyscape for the first 3 episodes, and the tech of the 70s wasn't able to allow him to produce it visually in the way that he would have liked. So we started in episode 4 because it was more stripped down. It was this like fallen world, easier enough to try to depict with 70s technology. And then the grand scale of things that he was envisioning for the first 3 episodes wasn't available to him. And then he got on top of it in the 90s when it was.
Okay, that kind of makes sense to me. Yeah. And for these movies, I mean, he invented a lot of the tech that was actually used for the filming of it, right?
I believe he did. I mean, like Industrial Light and Magic is his tech company, which I think was birthed during the production of the first 3 films. Okay. And pioneered most of the technology involved, but I don't know for sure.
I'm sure there's going to be people on the comment section.
No, they'll be all over
it. You were absolutely wrong, Adrial, and
that's fine. Listen, that's okay. Anybody can trump me on.
Listen, we're just the technical having history. A conversation instead of doing this upstairs in the couch, and having some fun. We're having the fun down here and recording it. That's the whole thing. Now, I mean, the technology wasn't there, and then years later. Apparently he thought the technology was there. And here come episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Was the technology there, Adrial?
I mean, it was there, but
can you see?
Well, the digital
sense the tone of.
Yeah. I mean, the digital technology was at his disposal, and he could present the visual section of the world that he was aiming for, which was nice. But that was about all. Like episodes 1, 2, 3 are largely just in him getting off on how much he can show you with his digital tech, but in terms of character development or narrative, pretty weak. I think that's
and this was like, I'm looking at the dates here, so they came out in 99, 02, and 05.
Yeah.
But remember, before episodes 1, 2, and 3 were the dreaded special editions.
In 97,
where he tested out his digital technology by adding all of these little things into every single original movie.
Yeah, destroying them, right?
Yeah.
No, not destroying them,
but like adulterating them, you might put it that way. Particularly with the Han shot first, the whole shit with Greedo.
Yeah, you can swear. It's okay. The Force is okay with us here.
Very good.
Hayden Christensen's face over over
at the end of Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Why?
Yeah, that was not nice. That was just not nice. I mean, the first question, and I had mentioned this to you guys upstairs, when I was writing my little. My little notes here, because unlike you guys, I'm terrible with names, I'm terrible with dates, I'm terrible with everything. Let's put it there. I don't know. What am I doing here? I'm good at asking questions. That's why I'm here. Okay, Adrial? Come on, man.
No, I get it.
So one of the first question that kind of popped into my head, like, what am I going to ask about episode 1, 2, and 3 is why? Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a need for those episodes? Like, if let's say somebody has never watched Star Wars, they're starting off right now. What do we need to actually watch in those movies that makes sense?
A student asked me just last week. I said start with Rogue One, then go to A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi.
Okay, why Rogue One, the first one?
It leads
leads beautifully into the movie from 77, yeah. Beautifully.
But then won't that confuse the person? Like, now I'm thinking more on a technical aspect, right? Because you're going from a today's quote-unquote kind of movie into a 70s movie. And that's, I mean, I know when my kids watched the first movies, or episode 4, 5, and 6, they were like, oh, okay. they weren't too impressed.
Well, because they were used to far more extensive digital effects from anything they've seen before that, right?
But I guess if you warn people, just be careful, those 70s ones. And
Right, just remember they're 40-something years old. It's fine. Yeah.
It's okay being 40, man.
It's fine.
It's fine. It's okay.
It's fine.
Even though I'm 20-something.
Oh, right. But, I mean, we can get ourselves there by way of imagination, yeah.
Of course. Yeah. So, Rogue One. Let's talk about Rogue One. Oh, okay, there were 2 spin-offs. I guess, do we call them spin-offs?
Which?
Or the
standalones?
Standalones?
Yeah, standalones.
Is it standalones?
Right, yeah, because they're
Rogue
just trying
One
to,
and Solo.
Yes, they're trying to do stories that integrate into the already established narrative, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, thoughts about that one? Rogue One. Mark.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah?
Hands down, one of the best movies of the new Star Wars era.
Why?
The way they...
Mark, get closer to the droid, man. The droid will not bite you.
the way that they incorporated the worlds of Star Wars without overdoing it.
Okay.
So you see hints of characters here and there throughout the movies. C-3PO, R2, just at the end, because there was a base. Yavin was mentioned at the end, and so they're there. So it's just little teasers here and there, but all the characters are standalone characters, and the movie was solid as a whole.
And what do you think about the actors that they chose to play the roles, the main roles? I mean, we
had Rogue One.
In Rogue One, yeah. We had Felicity Jones. I have here.
Yep.
I have all my notes.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And Diego Luna. I think they did an amazing job.
They did a very good job.
Fit really, really well with the characters. Even though Diego, he's been in a lot of movies and TV shows. But I honestly, I didn't know about Felicity. I don't know if you guys knew about her.
Vaguely. She was in that Stephen Hawking biopic earlier.
Yeah.
Forget the name of it, but yeah.
So... good choices there, or
I think so. Yeah, I enjoyed what they did. It was each character was sort of well drawn, and the movie just sort of seamlessly inserted itself into the larger narrative and gave you some fan service / some just good storytelling.
I think that when it comes to actors, I think there was always like this, this being careful choosing actors that weren't too known to the general public.
Yeah, right. That's a tradition in Star Wars. Yeah.
But then Solo comes around,
and
I think Solo was like. Here's like a whole bag of...
Yeah, but that's under Disney's ownership, so they have different priorities.
Okay, so I was gonna say, so do you think Disney is the one that's changing all of that in that aspect, trying to get more of the better known actors and actresses?
They're blending it. I mean, was Daisy Ridley much of a name before Force Awakens?
I don't think so.
Right, so they still held on to a little bit of that casting tradition, but also made sure to insert enough people who were well recognized for... all of their decisions seem to be driven by what's going to maximize the box office take. Sometimes at the expense of the narrative, or many times. But they at least retained some of the traditional casting approach in episode 8. No, sorry, 7.
This is where it gets complicated math.
7, yeah.
But in Solo, what do you think? Even though they brought more known, established names to the roster, how was it? What did you think?
It was a nice one-off. It was entertaining. I mean, it didn't blow my mind, but it was fun.
Yeah.
And the guy they cast as Solo, I think, was himself kind of an unknown, or at least not super high profile.
It wasn't super high profile. Yeah. Your explanation in the fact that it didn't really do too well in the box office. We were talking about this just a little bit ago. You think it was too close to the...
5 months after The Last Jedi, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and The Last Jedi was not the favorite one of the last group.
It was polarizing. You put it that way, right? it generated some very polar reactions, and I get it. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but I also understand those, long-term Star Wars fans who found it intolerable. But again, the problem there is that as it took all these risks, and I think Rian Johnson did some pretty interesting stuff, but Disney didn't give the run of that trilogy to any set person or group. So the net result is just kind of incoherent because they didn't have a plan to start with. And if you're going to do 3 movies that are supposed to be a tight unit, you need to have people that you trust and say, listen, design these movies, execute them. So we'll stand back and maybe make some tweaks here and there, but we're not going to intrude ceaselessly, which it seems is what they did. And they let Abrams do the first one, and then when it's done, it's like, all right, so who do we put in now, and where's it going to go now? Those questions should be settled way before.
Yeah, especially if you're doing a trilogy.
Yeah, right. You're doing a trilogy that's supposed to wrap up this narrative arc that began in 77 that so many people are invested in. It takes such a kind of messy or sloppy approach to it. it was a bad move. And I mean, you can see they're moving mostly now to TV series because they've realized they've alienated a lot of their base by the way they did this trilogy.
Yeah.
And they had all these other movies in mind, but they seem to have scaled that back because they're just like, they're trying to recalibrate after the mess in terms of at least the organization of the artistic end of it with 7, 8, 9.
But do you think going back to The Last Jedi, do you think it tied in with the previous movie, the what is it, The Force Awakens?
Force Awakens.
Did it tie in well with it? Do you think it tied in well? Because I know it didn't tie in well with the last one, right? No. I mean, the last one was kind of like trying to catch up to all of these ideas and put everything into one box. Do you agree?
Oh, it was, yeah. But that
Totally.
yes, sorry.
No, it's okay. We pass the ball around. It's all good.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's talk more about these last 3 movies. I mean, I think they should have learned their lesson a little bit better with episode 4, 5, and 6. Why do you think this happened? Like, was it because of Disney that it came in?
Yes, it was.
Okay, elaborate more on that. Mark, I know you're like, I want to talk about this.
Passing the torch back and forth. I mean, the first movie, I have to refer to, George Lucas was fully in charge of A New Hope. And then the reins were passed to Lawrence Kasdan, who followed up with Empire and Return of the Jedi. So he didn't have full control over all, but the jumping back and forth between Abrams to Johnson and back to Abrams to kind of fix Johnson's mess, you can see that's what was going on in The Rise of Skywalker.
Right, even with different directors in the first 3 movies, Lucas was still sort of the creative, head, and so they would have to confer and be a bit of a team.
Do you think his like over control on where the movies are going to go? Do you think that was the issue? Like that
Lucas?
Yeah.
Well, that was the issue with 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Not with 4, 5, 6. With 4, 5, also.
So what was the big difference? I mean, we're talking about the same guy here, right?
Different point in his career. In 1, 2, 3, he's the king. Everybody defers to him. Nobody wants to piss George off. Nobody wants to offend him in any way. Anything he says is like, gospel truth.
Okay.
So you just bow down to Lucas and let it happen, and the result is episodes 1, 2, and 3, right? With 4, 5, 6, he's a major player, but he has to work with a team of other creatives. He's not as big a deal then as he was later. And so he has to take input and delegate jobs to people who are better at different things, like dialogue writing and directing. He's a concept guy. He's good for sort of like stepping back and mapping out the whole universe. But he's not. He's horrific at dialogue. He sucks at it. And
hence Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, right. Jar Jar and all of the like garbage dialogue with Padme and Anakin, which is just like revolting. And that could have been a really compelling storyline. And they messed it up completely. Like that. What a great opportunity to do a backstory of such a a fall from grace character. But instead, the romance is scarcely believable. It's cringeworthy at every turn. The relationship between Kenobi and Anakin is taken care of in one elevator conversation. Like, that's it?
True,
hey, remember
that's
that?
right.
Remember that time we did that thing? Yeah, cool. Anyway, we're best buds. Let's keep going. How about give me, I don't know, an hour worth of character development where the two of them, I can believe that they care this much about each other. And then when it goes to shit on Mustafar, it matters. Yeah.
From those 3 movies, 1, 2, and 3, what is hands down the worst one?
2.
Mark.
2.
2?
Yeah.
Why?
Too much dialogue, talking, politics.
Right. Star Wars fans love politics. Oh, trade agreements. Let's go. Racism against the Chinese. Lay it in. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
That Trade Federation to episode 1 and 2 is like super racist. It's not good.
What should have they done? What was, in your opinion, what should have happened in these movies?
The cool characters. He was more interested in plot and story. Here he has Jango Fett, and so much. Like, you can see with what Disney's doing now, focusing on the cool characters.
So he had the chance there,
yeah,
and he just kind of just brushed it, and he didn't really care much about it. And then I think in that sense, Disney now looked at it and goes, "Hey, we have something here," and now we have 8 episodes of The Mandalorian, which, I mean, it could be better, but it's a pretty damn good series.
It is.
Yeah.
Because it's long-form storytelling, right? And they've given it to more competent artists to take care of, like Jon Favreau, etc.
But let's go back to Jar Jar Binks.
Well, I mean, if we have to.
Because, I mean, okay. Do you think if these episodes, episode 1, 2, and 3, if they were done today with all of the technology that we have now, in which you can barely notice a difference between CGI and real actors, and like we've gotten to that point nowadays, do you think it would have worked? or is it just a story issue?
It's character and story.
It was.
I mean, it
both,
might have been
right?
you might have tweaked the visuals a little bit, but if you still have the same guy designing the dialogue and the characters, it would be the same effect. Just it would look better.
Mark, what do you think?
Oh yeah, Jar Jar had no place.
He's a disaster.
He just disappeared. In 3?
What happened to the guy?
Did he become a?
Are there any
Well,
posters? on?
so at that point, the hatred was so widespread among the fandom
was
that
a
they had
senator?
him. Yes, they had right, which is so improbable in itself. But they had him essentially facilitate Palpatine's rise to autocracy as a mild apology for having him there in the first place.
Yeah, it's like you have never seen him.
Right.
Uh,
Like I would do a Jar Jar voice, but also I can't bring myself to it.
No, it's okay. I don't think our listeners need that.
Nobody
at this
needs that.
point.
Yeah.
No matter. I mean,
No.
I can only imagine somebody running on a treadmill listening to this podcast. You doing that voice and
That would
falling.
turn. Yeah, that's it. You're losing.
no.
You're losing subscribers if that's what's going on. Yeah.
So, Rise of Skywalker,
Mm-hmm.
still fresh in our minds. Mark,
I totally enjoyed it. I thought it was.
what
great.
did you like most about it?
The tying in everything from before, like right down to the last scene where Rey is on Tatooine bearing the lightsabers back at that homestead of Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, where it all began. That just like floored me.
Yeah.
At the end,
That was
they were
actually
gonna-
pretty good.
yeah.
I like
Nice
that.
visual completion. Yeah. Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah,
What's the bad and the ugly? Come on, Adriel.
Well, it's a rush job, right?
Okay.
That movie's a huge rush job because, again, they didn't have the same person or team of people behind all three of the movies. And if you're doing a trilogy, that means it's essentially a single movie in 3 parts. Why would you take a single movie and then give it to 2 different directors and a bunch of different scriptwriters that don't talk to each other over a span of years? It was entertaining. Like, I'm not going to say it wasn't entertaining.
You feel that they
but
could
it
have
felt rushed and...
Okay, could they have cut out certain parts and just made it a little bit tighter of a movie, or do you think that they should have expanded a little bit more and probably? And I know this whole trilogy thing, but should they have not made a 4th movie instead of trying to cram everything into this one and trying to finish everything off on this one?
Yeah, they committed to the trilogy format, right?
Yeah.
Off of 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, okay, 7, 8, 9.
But there was just so much.
There was so much,
right?
but the main reason they were rushing so hard in that last movie is because it was not like the trilogy needed to be designed by a single person or team, and since it wasn't, by the time he handed it back to Abrams after Rian Johnson alienates the fandom, it's a bit of a scramble. It still produces a movie that's entertaining and has some, like that last shot on Tatooine was awesome, but
Yeah.
it has a rushed feeling, which is one guy coming in like, oh, okay, what do I do now? I only have one movie. Why can't you just give those 3 films, which are one film in 3 parts, to a single person or team that you trust and let them produce something cohesive?
Okay. No, I fully agree. Mark, do you agree with that too?
I like your idea of a 2-part finale, kind of like pulling a J.K. Rowling with the Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Taking the last book and making it 2 movies. Because Palpatine, that story could have been explained. Apparently, it was filmed. They're not putting it in the extended 30 minutes
you were
in
just
the
saying
DVD
that
that's coming out next month.
I actually had heard that they were coming out with that. So apparently that's like not
People
a thing.
were hoping it'd be a 3-hour DVD release. It is not.
What do we make of the claim that... So there's a couple of YouTubers who just like rant endlessly about the death of this franchise, and they're so angry. And little bits of what they say I can sort of think has some merit, but the rest of it's a bit much. But bringing back Palpatine cheapens Vader's accomplishment in Jedi.
Okay.
That was the claim. So here's the wrap up.
How does that work out?
So here's, he's been seduced by Palpatine, his son redeems him, and then he finally sort of puts an end to this Dark Lord who had swayed him, Anakin, by tossing him down the shaft in the Death Star and bringing an end to that, and so he's redeemed himself, etc. And then, so the claim by some of these people is that if you bring Palpatine back, it's like, oh, actually, he's still here, it's fine. It means that what Anakin did doesn't matter all that much.
True, I guess. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? We got Mark thinking here.
The Return of Palpatine I read was all about bringing all 9 to a closure. That not much was brought back from episodes 1, 2, and 3, but he was. And so you have this character from episode 1 needing to get into chapter 9, the 9th movie, and bringing final closure. And that's why he was introduced into 9, brought back for 9.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, I guess the question becomes like, what's the centerpiece of all 9 movies? And they keep talking about bringing balance to the Force. That's what Anakin was supposed to do. He was a prophesied chosen one to bring balance to the Force. What that even means is never thoroughly explained. And if the Skywalker clan is supposed to bring balance to the Force, okay, as long as that happens by the end of the 9 movies, it's fine. Does Palpatine need to come back for that? I don't know, maybe, but what even is balance?
Well, then we find out through this movie the connection, obviously, that Rey has with Palpatine, honestly, being Grandpa and not going, he never went by Christmas time or anything like that. He was a bad grandpa.
Plus
the
thought of Palpatine reproducing the concrete
that
realities of that is pretty gross.
That has been questioned by many people, and myself included.
Why'd you make me imagine that? Like, why?
I'm gonna have nightmares right now, and I might have another beer after
fair.
this. Yeah. But what about Kylo Ren? Kylo Ren and Rey.
Kylo's a great character.
It's a great character, but I kind of felt like he was so indecisive throughout the movies. He wanted to be the good guy. Well, never the good guy, but he wanted to be the bad guy because he wanted to show Dad that he wasn't the good guy. Like, it was such a roller coaster of I want to be bad because I want to be like my grandfather, but I actually feel like I'm a good guy, but I'm a bad guy, but now I like Rey, so I got to be so confusing. And at the end, it almost felt like I don't know, this is my opinion, but it almost felt like, that scene where he is, let's say, quote unquote, reunited with Han Solo, his dad. And he goes, I shouldn't have done that.
Kill you, you mean?
Yeah. That little.
Sorry about killing you.
Sorry about that. Like, why wouldn't you just do that, before killing him? Like, well, why would you even kill him? Like, you know what I mean? I just felt
He's like angsty teen. I mean, that's what Kylo is, right?
True.
That doesn't excuse him murdering his own father, but...
But Princess Leia, I mean, if she had the power to do what she did at the end, why did she only do it at the end?
Why did she wait that long?
Yeah, why did she wait that long?
Because it wasn't the same person scripting all the movies.
Oh. Yeah. I thought it might have been like a divorce settlement.
No, I don't think there's any kind of coherent narrative reason. It's just like sloppy production.
Like, I want to split my things. I'm going to keep these
We can do all sorts of gymnastics to try to explain it, but I think ultimately it's a result of Disney's choices in terms of who's running the show.
Yeah. I don't know. That scene there to me is like, okay, she did that. And I felt that's the only part I felt a little bit like it was a bit forced. Like, they just killed her off. And I get it because, I mean, poor lady's been dead for a while.
They had to work with,
So, and I kind of get that, but I felt like, okay, if she could have done this, why wait until now? Why do this now? I don't know. What do you guys think about that whole scene, whole aspect?
The using up of her life force, because when Jedis die, they disappear. Obi-Wan Kenobi gets killed. He disappears. Yoda passes. He disappears right away.
But why didn't she do it before?
She doesn't disappear. Which, if you go back to the
that's
movie,
right. Okay,
she's under the...
She does later, though, right?
Yes, but they cover her up because they think she's dead. Because the line was she knows what she has to do.
Yeah.
And essentially, she passes her force powers to Rey.
Yeah.
Rey is...
To Rey?
No, sorry.
To Kylo?
Sorry, to Kylo. And
But converts him in the process, no?
Yes.
Why not do that earlier? Yeah.
Yeah. So, because knowing that this is going to use up all of her life force, she doesn't do it until the very end because she knows what she has to do now.
So is it like her last... She sees it as a last resort kind of thing?
Was she banking on him converting of his own accord earlier? And then when he wouldn't, it's like, all right, I'm going to die converting you?
Yeah. Like, that's what it looked like to me. I mean, and he suddenly has the force healing power.
Yeah.
Is this Leia acting through Kylo? That whole scene. Who is doing everything at the end?
I never thought about that. That's right.
Is this Leia acting, just simply giving Kylo her powers of the Force, or is it Kylo on his own using his mother's Force powers that she's passed on to him? Finally, when he dies, that's when her body disappears under the cloak. Mm-hmm. So she's not dead when everyone thinks she's dead under the under the
She's
shroud.
never
like
thought about
puppeteering him until that
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
Or at
puppeteering
least
or just
supporting him. Yeah.
with her force powers.
Yeah.
So,
But what about the connection between these two characters, like Kylo Ren and Rey? They obviously have this special way of communicating. I mean, they're probably on the new 5G network,
At least.
because it's awesome.
least,
I mean,
yeah.
these guys can essentially
definitely 7G. Definitely 7G.
Let me grab the beer that's on your side of, like. How does this happen? How's this even happening? They never explain any of this stuff. We haven't seen it in any other character, or have we? Am I wrong to assume that?
That kind of direct force communication across distance?
The 7G.
Not that I can immediately think of, no.
Let's call it the 7G.
Let's call it the 7G.
7G.
Yeah.
I think it's a good name for it. I mean,
And
but what?
did she want to see topless Kylo?
On some level, I guess.
Yeah.
Mind you, the kiss at the end was nonsense. Like, there was no build up to that at all. It was like, there was like, oh well, let's do this because it's a movie.
Oh, really? Why now? Okay. And that begs the question: would they be able to do it when the other one wasn't expecting? Is this like how about privacy? Like, what's going on here?
Well, yeah, he does just sort
Does
of
this
intrude
happen when he's in the
periodically.
shower? When she's in the shower? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, one of them initiates.
Yeah, right.
And the other one has to be like, oh, okay, you're here. Let me
Here, I'll open the
adjust.
door right now. Okay, come on
Yeah.
in. I don't know. This is kind of confusing to me. I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of this, but these are questions that as I'm sitting down at the theater, I'm going, is this going to be the next iPhone? I don't know. Is this what's going to happen? Possibly. Okay, moving on. Let's move on to the TV series, The Mandalorian.
Side note, though.
Okay.
What do we make of the claim, and I think this is fair, that Rey was too awesome too soon? There was no arc for her. There's no development. There's no learning journey. She's just amazing. And then she gets even more amazing. She can pilot the Falcon. She's kick-ass with weapons and fighting.
she's a Palpatine.
Yeah, but like, who cares about a character who's amazing from the get-go? Like, why do I want to follow her? That's the end of her story, if anything. Like with Luke, if Luke was amazing on Tatooine, then he's boring.
Yeah. I kind of see where you're getting to, but I think they just didn't want to have to go through the whole character development.
Why not? You got
side.
3 movies. Do it. Okay, you're introducing a character for 3 movies, and you want us to be at the peak of her development at the beginning?
I know, right?
So, okay, some of the
here's a lightsaber. Oh,
boom! I know what the hell to do with this.
yeah.
Some of the outrage, which I think is misguided to a large extent, but some of the outrage on fandom, Twitter, etc., and YouTube, is they believe that in the desire to, and this is a legitimate desire, in the desire to sort of correct for patriarchy, where all the women are in subservient positions and have no agency, and all the men are just amazing. You want to offset that a bit, and legitimately. But even Lucas did that a bit with Leia at the beginning. Like, she's being rescued by Han and Luke, but she's kind of the agent of her own deliverance. Like, she's not
She
a
gives that
damsel
little
in
bit of
distress.
an
She kind of
attitude.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. So that was already in the tradition. It needed to be expanded, and patriarchal stuff needs to be offset legitimately, but there's like an overcorrection where, especially in Last Jedi, every male character is kind of reduced to this infantile boy who needs to be shown how to do everything
true.
by the women, and the women are spectacular. And not that the women shouldn't be in those positions of strength, but it's just this like simplistic, all the men are children and all the women are mothers correcting them. And in a desire, like that Kathleen Kennedy, I'm sure, wanted to pursue, and it's legitimate. You see that t-shirt of hers, the force is female or the future is female. And there's some, that's worthwhile motivation, but in their earnest desire to offset the patriarchy, you end up reducing all the male characters to these sort of like children, and all the female characters have no arc.
Yeah.
They're just kick-ass and awesome from the get-go. It's like, well, why is that interesting?
True. I guess, we should have a little bit more of a character development when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Mark, anything else you want to add to these to the movies?
I still want to know what Finn wanted to say to Rey.
Oh yeah, what was that?
I have.
I'm force sensitive, right? Because he displayed all those
For-
powers later in that movie.
It was never revealed.
No,
he
but-
had something to talk to her about.
Right. It wasn't clear what he said, but then later he displays a degree of force power. Maybe that's what he wanted to tell her, / more scandalous things. I don't know. Yeah.
There's probably going to be another movie coming around soon just to explain that, and there'll be probably a 2.5 hour one. Now moving on to The Mandalorian. Mark, I know you're a fan.
Oh,
you
yeah.
like it?
The timing
So-
of the episode that came out before The Rise of Skywalker, how the release dates were Friday nights of The Mandalorian, but because of the Friday release date of The Rise of Skywalker, they pushed it up to Wednesday because the whole appearance of Force healing makes its appearance in The Mandalorian 2 days before we see that there's such thing as force healing in The Rise of Skywalker.
So that was very,
timed effort and
Yes.
and to bring that in, so people aren't watching the movie thinking, "What are they doing?" Oh, it just happened, and it's
and they're assuming that everybody's watching The Mandalorian too.
and they would be.
And
Right.
they would be.
That's a good marketing move to make your
Absolutely.
full enjoyment of the movie dependent on watching another Disney product.
So what did you think overall? These 8 episodes, some people, and some of them, I know they were just complaining that, oh, this was too short. I wanted more. In a way, that's a good sign. I guess people wanted to see more and were kind of like hungry for more because it was a good quality show. I think it was. Mark, in terms of storyline, in terms of the way they crafted this.
Well,
what
the
do you think?
production, the amount that went into it, it astounds me that every single episode of The Mandalorian equaled what they spent on each episode of Game of Thrones.
Wow.
So that the money that
But you
went
could tell
into
though.
that, yeah,
But you can tell.
yeah, this
these
essentially
these
is
episodes,
a movie
they were
made
movies.
for television. Yeah,
Yeah, they were absolute movies.
Yeah, for sure.
What
Well,
about
it's
you?
a benefit of having all the endless money that Disney has.
And what do you think? What do you think of the storyline? Like, did they go and pick up the right character to develop the Mandalorian?
Oh yeah. This was their idea that changed from a Boba Fett movie, which maybe they went away from because everyone, I guess, didn't enjoy Solo. And everyone was talking about in the past how there should be a Boba Fett movie, but they made Solo instead. They left out even Boba Fett from that because they know each other from their rapport in Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
So the idea that they're just taking another character from the same planet, and that idea that George didn't do enough paying attention to Mandalorians in episode 2. Let's just take a Mandalorian and
They deserved more.
yeah, oh yeah.
That was the bottom line, right?
Oh, yeah.
And what do you think about getting in all the details in? Like they're now we're seeing these guys as they're a religion basically, right? They're
Yeah, there's a code. There's a not almost a cultish quality about them, but not quite. Yeah.
What do you think of that? Like, did they do a good job on it? Like, do you wish you want to see more, less? Like, what's your take on it?
I'm not. I think to be fully conversant with what the Mandalorians are supposed to be, you need to be a little more familiar with the extended universe than I am. But it's clear that there was a whole, established long-term culture there that they're trying to tap into, and it was intriguing. If I knew more background on what the Mandalorians are, then I might benefit from it even more. But even without that, it's still
Is there
enjoyable.
enough backstory to them?
I think there's a lot, but I mean, how much of it survived Disney's redefinition of what Star Wars canon is, I'm not sure. But there was apparently quite a lot of, extended universe books and literature all about who the Mandalorians are and what their role is.
And what about Baby Yoda? Everybody's
Amazing.
talking about
50-year-old Baby Yoda,
50-year-old,
right?
50-year-old.
The most youthful 50-year-old.
What do you think about that, Mark?
I'm into it. Yeah.
Well, that was a jaw dropper at the end of episode 1.
Yeah.
When he finds him in the baby basket, and the immediate reaction is, "What the hell are they doing now?"
Also,
And
is that
just-
Yoda?
Yeah.
No.
Or is
Of
that just
course.
one of Yoda's kind?
It's one of Yoda's kind because this takes place 5 years after Return of the Jedi. Yoda dies. So this is another one of, especially, and when you look at the whole Star Wars universe, Yoda's the only one species that has never been defined.
So one of the questions I saw floating around is it a reincarnation?
Yeah, that's
of
right. In which case
Yoda?
it kind of is Yoda, but maybe not. Maybe it's just his species from who knows where.
But
Because that's the other thing that's floating around is that there's a whole planet of these
Where are they
little
from, though?
creatures.
I mean,
and
we don't
where
know.
are
we've
they
been
from?
promised more for season 2.
Well,
more
course.
of that species?
Yeah.
I guess these questions are going to be answered in the show, and that's why they're going to keep on recording them. But it's kind of, I think it would be an interesting take to see Baby Yoda actually being Yoda, and for me it would be interesting as well as he grows older, even though he's 50. I mean, I don't know what he's eating.
Remember, it's the child. It could be a she.
True.
It's
Yeah,
the
sure.
child.
I don't know how you differentiate the male from female of whatever Yoda is, but yeah.
Depends on the years, man. I guess I don't know.
Where do you have to look to? Anyway, whatever. Fine.
Listen, let's not get into that. 'Cause that's a whole different bag of surprises right there. Did the Mandalorian check? No. Okay, never mind.
Off camera, maybe? I don't know.
Did he change the diaper? I mean, it's
Possibly.
a child.
He's always leaving it in the ship.
I know, that's a little bit careless, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, this guy goes on for a walk and like, where's the baby, dude? Like, he'll be fine. Playing around with this little silver ball
got
and
force powers.
swallowing it and choking to death. He'll be fine.
Neglect. It's neglect. Yeah.
So, what do you want to see in The Mandalorian in the next season? What's like a wish list, bucket list of wishes that you'd like to see, Mark?
Well, we are getting back to the planet that Yoda's originally from. If they're promising more Yoda-like characters that are going to appear in season 2, obviously, the Mandalorian gets E.T. home.
Okay, and how is that going to tie in with the movies?
This is set after episode 6?
Yes, this is Mandalorian's 5 years after Return of the Jedi.
And there's a pretty big gap between 6 and 7. No?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
30 years?
something like that. So it doesn't
Yeah.
have to dovetail directly into 7
No.
necessarily. Yeah.
No?
If there's, I mean, it could have a
I mean,
storyline that goes for a couple of years and then there's still multiple years before the.
I mean, if
Episode
these are
7,
creatures that are fully integrated with the whole Force,
But they didn't make any appearance in 7, 8, 9, right? And there was none of Yoda's species in 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, the species isn't even named in the Star Wars universe.
Ever. No, yeah.
What Yoda's species is.
Right.
That's interesting. Why do you think they chose that?
Add some mysticism to it, right? Yoda's like
Yeah.
the height of Jedi mysticism, I guess. If he has no point of origin or concrete community that he belongs to, it's almost like he's just emergent from the Force itself.
Okay, that's a nice perspective.
People used to think he was from Dagobah, but no, he's just living his hermit life at the end of his life on Dagobah.
Having fled there following the disaster.
Because he's how old by then?
900, yeah.
900,
As he
right?
declares, yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's true or not. I wasn't there.
That's what he says.
That's what he says. So, more movies? No more movies? Do you think that in 10 years from now somebody's going to reboot something? Do you want to see a reboot? Do you think they need to do a reboot? Just stay still, don't do anything? Like, what's your opinion?
I think they're going to lean into the series more because they've not done particularly well in terms of box office take with 7, 8, 9.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly the most recent one. I don't have the stats, but it took a big hit pretty quickly. Like, its box office didn't endure the way that they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So they've oversaturated us with movies, and they have done kind of a sketchy job with the movies for like old-timey fans. So they're probably going to lean more into things like The Mandalorian that they're getting better ratings on, where they have the breathing room for long-form storytelling and character development, and they give it to more competent people to design, like Favreau. So if they realize that that's going to retain the fandom that hasn't been totally alienated, they'll probably stick with that, at least for a while.
There is a release date for December 2022.
Of what?
Of a Star Wars movie. That's set.
But otherwise, like, details
Something
not
was
forthcoming?
announced this week, and it's just simply an unnamed project. They've assigned a writer and a director. That was announced a few days ago because on the books, because now they're going for the every 2, or were they going to leave it 3 this time? Because it used to be every 2.
Yeah.
But I know that I think they said December 2022. There is something set for release.
But isn't this one of those sagas or storylines that, you know what, we've had so many movies now, so many things. Do you still think that there's enough there to keep people watching? Isn't, because my theory is, movies and TV series, they can be good, but sometimes you need to know when to back off and just let them be.
Disney only realizes they have to back off when they've gone too far. Right?
When they don't make enough money.
When they don't make
right?
enough money, they've
Yeah.
oversaturated the market. Like, oh crap, okay, we'll back off.
Oh no!
But it's
whose
never,
idea was this?
You're right. They want to squeeze as much out of their $4 billion investment as they possibly can. And they've already made that back, I'm sure. But like any corporate entity, they're so addicted to their bottom line that they'll just keep going forever.
And Diego Luna is back with a Star Wars series on Disney Plus. That's the next series that's coming out.
Who's say anything?
Diego Luna?
It's a pre-Rogue One.
Oh, did he?
Story.
He was in Rogue One.
Yep.
Is it his character? Is his
Yes,
character?
Cassian. It's a
Cassian is the
series.
center of the series.
Cassian series is
Okay.
the next Star Wars plan for Disney Plus. So that is a definite. And right now, it's being thrown back and forth between the next movie, not the next movie, because 2022 is not the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie that got shifted to Disney Plus, which is on
into a series? Is it
into a
a
series.
movie or
Yeah.
series? Okay.
Yeah. So they've gone from
that makes sense
movie
to be a
series
right?
now. Yeah. With what Ewan McGregor has said, and he's refuted the idea that it's been canned. that is just on hiatus for some script rewrites and working.
No, I think that's a
through-
good idea. I think from a fan, I mean, I would love to watch that. But sometimes, like people say, it's too much. It's too much. Let's lay low. Let's forget about it. Don't do it again. And but I don't know.
Disney's going to do as much as they possibly can, as long as they don't think it'll hurt their bottom line. Their primary motive isn't like how excellent the narrative is and how well considered the characters are. It's just how much money can we squeeze out of this.
It's all about the money.
Yeah, sadly, but yes.
All right, boys. Anything else you would like to add to this conversation in Star Wars that we might have not touched upon and you want to give your 2 cents on? Or have we touched on every single thing possible?
Well, not everything.
No.
But I mean, we
would
hit
be here for 3 hours.
the identity
but-
politics thing with gendering in the new movies and the corporatism of Disney and how that is a
getting everyone
liability.
to Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland and Disney World.
Ah.
Yeah, right.
How was that?
Well, they even went as far as creating a comic book series to tell you the backstory to Galaxy's Edge.
The ride or the experience.
Well, the whole park that they built there.
Right, okay.
Because
There was a
you were
whole-
there just last what
December, yeah.
December. Oh,
December. So yeah, there was
Jealous.
even they want to explain that planet and Black Spire Outpost.
Let's go back, Mark.
Yeah.
How did you get okay, you went there. Let's talk about this story. This is super interesting. I've never been. You've never been.
It's new, right?
It's new. How was it, man?
It was amazing. The Rise of the Resistance ride opened up, I think, 3 weeks before we got there. It opened August 29th, but that was only Smuggler's Run, the Millennium Falcon ride. So that's the only major ride that was open at that place up until December, or first week of December, when they opened up Rise of the Resistance.
Yeah.
And that is the spectacular. That's, I guess, Disney's most technologically advanced ride that they've made so far. Wow. You are in moving vehicles that are not on tracks. It's Disney's first trackless ride.
So how does that work?
It's all controlled by computers. These carts move. I think we were 3 rows of 4. We had a dozen people, or were 3 rows of 3. I forget. But we are just usually you're on tracks going through buildings, being led around to different scenes and experiences. This thing we were going up and down on elevators into different parts of the building. And as we got off the ride, I took out my phone to record these vehicles that are transporting people around, not on rails. And
That's
so
insane.
there's lots of technical glitches, because when we got to the park at 5:30 a.m. in order to ride this ride, it was
that's
a
a
4
commitment, yeah.
4 a.m. It was a commitment for being there that soon to opening. 4 a.m. wake up call.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I had to wake
That
up.
feels
at
like a
4.
March break trip.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, and my family, they stayed in the room. They said, "You're the Star Wars freak. You wake up at 4."
Yeah.
So I went with this other family.
Good choice.
Well done.
And we had to be outside the park at 5:30 a.m. because during Christmas break, parks opens at 6. So when we got to Hollywood Studios, we all had to wait outside. They start letting us in before the 6 a.m. Rope drop to all the rides, because we had to go on our app, the Disney app, because what they had for Rise of the Resistance was a virtual lineup. So you have to log into their app, and once 6 o'clock hits, you have to hit join line. And so basically you were given a boarding time later on in the day. So it might say you might be in group 1 to 10, so you go there now. However, you could be in group 98, which might happen at 6 p.m.
Okay, but that is that just a way for people
Crowd
not
control.
have to line up and
Crowd control, yeah.
control,
It's basically so people don't line up all day just to go on that one ride. You can go do your
Other-
whatever you
other
want
stuff.
in other parts
go
of the park.
spend your money
Yeah.
in other places, So
Yeah.
they're controlling basically where people are going to spend their money.
Yeah.
Yeah, why have people
You'll
line
eventually
up
get
all
on
day
the
and not
ride.
spend money?
Yeah, you'll eventually get on the ride and spend all your money elsewhere,
Yeah.
buying droids and lightsabers,
Yeah.
and then you can ride
I mean,
the ride.
it looks good from the pictures you were showing me. They really have this keen attention to the details of everything, which is, I mean, it is what it is. It's for the fans. It's for the people who have grown with these movies, this universe. I think it's always interesting. I eventually want to make my way there, right, Anna? She's in the back there, right?
Not getting up at 4:30.
No, not getting up at 4:30. Okay, Christmas present, birthday present. Yeah. Okay, eventually I'll try to find my way to Anna's reasoning. And so what else? Okay, from the park adventures that you had there, what was the most like eye-opening event there, or what surprised you the most, or what caught you by surprise? Like
the attention to detail with how they planned all of these just things to astound you when you're going through the ride. I know that Poe's X-Wing was somewhere on site, but you have to actually be on the ride of the Resistance line and being taken from one place in the ride to another line to actually see Poe's, X-Wing.
We have it right here in the table. So you could have just come to my house, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the amount of money that they went in just for at one point when you exit a ship because you've been captured by the
the bad guys.
Yes, the bad guys.
First Order?
Because they get First Order. They keep changing from Empire to First Order. Okay, captured by the First Order. Door to our transport opens, and a woman in an Imperial uniform says, this ship is now captured by the First Order. Follow me. We leave the ship, and there's 50 stormtroopers.
So they make this. They make you guys feel like you're in a movie, basically.
And we've been captured, and we walk through hallways that are lit like the Death Star because we're on an Imperial ship. When we are taken off the transport, we walk into a room of about 50 First Order troopers that we don't know if they're actors in costume or if they're just standing there in front of a huge, what looks like a 3-story video screen that's supposed to be an exterior shot of a Star Destroyer and TIE fighters flying like we're on the deck of a ship. What? And then suddenly one trooper walks to us and just says, "Follow me," and we have to follow him into the other room, which has more troopers and more Imperial officers guiding us onto ships.
Everybody that's on set per se,
yeah,
they're in character.
Oh yeah,
they never break character.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, and that's what's even scarier is even the vendors there, in the stores. If you ask them, "Is this available anywhere else in the park?" They say, "No, it's not available off-world." And the guy in front of me says, "Excuse me, it's not available off-world." You mean anywhere else in the park? She says, "Yeah." How many people do you confuse by saying these words? She goes, "Everybody." Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we have to say it.
Well, they're being monitored, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. So that's cool. So you can safely say that it was a worthwhile trip.
Oh yeah, I'd wake up at 4 a.m. again for that ride.
Are you serious?
Oh, totally.
Will you wake up at 4 o'clock for me and stay in line for me? Because I won't go. I love Star Wars, but man, 4:30, jeez, that's not for me, man. Well, anything else you guys want to add to this podcast? We've been running around for almost an hour, eh? Oh, the T-shirt, yes. This is, I mean, you're known as the T-shirt guy, right?
Yeah, you mash up. This is Futurama Star Wars. Yeah.
Futurama Star Wars.
Yeah.
I need to thank Tiago for putting all of these pieces together with his Lego expertise. He's been, by the way, I don't know if you've been watching or not. Have you been playing the game or not? I don't know. He was supposed to be doing his part. I have no idea. If
he worked for most of the time. Yeah.
So he was playing the Star Wars game in the background there, so he was doing his job. But yeah, he put all of these together and all the ones he's got upstairs in his room. So that was a cool little addition to the table today. Guys, thank you so much for having this conversation. Hopefully we'll be able to sit down and have a conversation about something else. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it can be, but we'll start talking about it and getting things going. I think this is a cool pizza night out.
Right on.
And some craft beer as well, because it is late in the night and we have to get, keep ourselves busy. Mm-hmm. For all the fans in the back, thank you all 103 for being here.
Awesome.
It was great seeing you all here. Autograph sessions will be right after the cameras go off.
Yeah, there's an app where you can line up.
Just try to log into the app as soon as you get the notice. And we'll try. I mean, we'll some favors, We'll talk to people that know people, and we'll get a couple of autographs for you guys. I'll autograph your T-shirt, you autograph mine, and we're good to go. Right on. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening or watching this Creative Spin podcast. Hope you guys liked it. If we said anything that was really, really wrong, just put it in the comments. We will still read them and take in all of the suggestions to correct our thoughts and ideas about Star Wars. But please don't forget to comment. And may the Force be with you. Yeah. All right, guys.
And also with you.
And also with you. Okay. All right, guys. Bye.
Ciao.